4 risk protection strategies in supply chains. How do we protect supply chains from disruptions and from situations where we cannot match demand with our supply? Well, the first strategy is to use inventory and specifically to maintain some excess inventory to cover for variability. This is what we did in our inventory models when we tried to provide some safety stock in order to avoid, for example, stockouts and losing some of the demand, some of the sales. The second strategy is pooling, and actually this will be the main topic of this part of the course. Pooling is basically trying to combine multiple sources of variability in order to make extreme values less likely. It's basically, if you combine multiple sources of variability, you will reduce standard deviation or coefficient of variation of the overall demand, and therefore maybe you will need less inventory to maintain the same service level and protect yourself from some stockouts or other negative effects. The third tool is contingency planning. Contingency planning is basically about establishing a preset course of action for an anticipated scenario. If you see something that might happen that will severely affect the supply chain, we might have a contingency plan, preset course of action that we will implement the moment the disruption happens. And for things that we didn't predict in contingency planning and inventory or pooling are insufficient, we have crisis management. If severe disruption happens, we establish a committee or a group of people or a single person who will manage a crisis and provide some immediate actions in order to mitigate or reduce effects of the disruption. When do we use each protection strategy, risk protection strategy? Well, we can think about two dimensions. The first of them is the horizontal dimension here, the light or severe consequences, right? We can look at possible disruptions and we can say, do they have light, medium, or severe consequences? And the second dimension we will look at here is likelihood of the occurrence of this disruption that we're thinking about, right? And of course, it can be very likely to occur or it can be very unlikely to occur or somewhere in between. So if you look at the space of all possible disruptions, first of all, if things have very light consequences, then maybe we don't need to do anything about them, right? We can ignore them. If likelihood of disruption is high and the consequences are medium to high, this is where we use inventory. So, for example, the demand is very likely to vary somewhat. We will then provide some safety inventory, or in order to try and protect ourselves with less inventory from those disruptions, we will use pooling, which we will discuss in this topic. When the likelihoods are smaller, we use contingency planning for medium to very severe situations. And you notice that we will have contingency planning for things that have medium consequences and medium likelihood of disruption. However, if things have very severe consequences, we may try to predict even things that have low likelihood of occurring. For the remaining things, we have crisis management. Usually, these are things that have quite severe consequences but are very hard to predict.